Hello, I'm Charles Kovess, Australasia's passion provocateur. Welcome to this week's episode of the Charles Kovess Show, whether you're watching on Rumble or on YouTube or listening via one of the many podcast platforms. This is episode 204. I will discuss two or three current issues, either local or global, that impact on us, and then explore how the self-awareness and passion principles that I've been teaching for 31 years can be used by you to elegantly and efficiently and effectively handle these issues in the context of your life. I'll also share resources that will help you in handling these issues. The show notes now give you links to the foundational principles of the show and details about my background, and also links to my websites where you can find my books, my passion speeches, my passion programs for corporates and individuals, and also details of the Self-Awareness and Passion Quest, an executive coaching program that can change your life and will if you participate in it. So let's go with this week's challenging issues and how to handle them using these principles. The first one is The Extraordinary Reversal by Stanley Plotkin, an American expert on children's vaccines, who for decades has been gaslighting the American people, the Australian people, the UK people about how wonderfully safe these childhood vaccines are. Siri, who works closely with Del Bigtree on the High Wire, in his latest Substack, and that's one of my resources for you this week, unpacks the gaslighting that Stanley Plotkin has been involved in. And now a recent article in a medical journal now says, there hasn't been sufficient research done. Well, for 13 years I've been involved in this issue. I've been helping parents of damaged children. I'm on the committee of the Australian Vaccination Risks Network. And the lies that government tell us are that children's vaccines are the safest medical intervention you can possibly have. Well, that's a lie. And now the experts are coming out. And why are they coming out and admitting that the proper studies have not been done? And in my TNT radio show, I interview numerous experts who each say not one of these jabs has ever had a proper safety and efficacy study. Why are they coming out now? Because they want you to take more of these things. And so the answer is get good information. You cannot rely on government because government is hugely influenced by Big Pharma. Big Pharma gives the money to the politicians. The politicians, just as the mainstream media, will not question Big Pharma. Have a look at Siri, S-I-R-A, his Substack. It's a magnificent short article that explains what lies have been told over the decades about these safety and efficacy issues. The essential statement is there are no proper safety studies. And here in Australia, we have a regime of no jabs, no pay. And this is for children. And this was brought in by the Australian government in 2016. I now call on the Australian government to immediately halt the compulsory injection of these vaccines into children. And the number that you need to be aware of is that in Australia, in the first 4 years of life under the no jab, no pay regime, a child in the first 4 years of life is expected to get 43 of such antigens pumped into them. 43. No wonder children aren't, and young adults aren't, and older adults aren't anywhere near as healthy as they used to be. The next item I want to mention is the legal system. And so the government wants you to believe that the judges are honest in all of the judges that are used in various levels of judging. Well, Charles Hoff, a doctor in Canada, has been unmercilessly attacked, and he had a big legal win against the medical boards that are trying to expel him, are trying to suspend him, are trying to cancel his registration because the medical board tried to say Charles Hoff cannot bring expert evidence to justify the advice that he's been giving to his patients. Can you believe that? He's got massive expert support and is not allowed to bring that evidence to the medical board. That is the legal system being brought into disrepute. And governments, similar in Australia with the TGA, are colluding with this. Why? Because of vested interests. So it reinforces this issue of don't believe what government says. Search for good information. The next issue in terms of your health is the insistence by health professionals of following protocols and evidence-based medicine. I just want to make one point on that. Nobody has your body. Julie doesn't have the same body as me. My whole life I've been spending in a particular way to look after my health. My body reacts in significantly different ways to any other body. So slavishly following a protocol for insurance purposes or evidence-based medicine based on millions of people, that's a stupid thing to do for your body. And so here's where responsibility comes in. Responsibility lies at the heart of the self-awareness and passion quest. Take responsibility. Stop listening to alleged experts who have hidden agendas in terms of your health. You have to take the responsibility. You have to find someone who's going to tell you the truth. You have to make better decisions if you want to live. Now, if you don't want to live, don't worry about that. The next matter is the great work being done by Michelle Gershman and Sharon Cousins and Fiona Marlowe in relation to pregnant women who have been jabbed by these latest jabs over the last 4 years. The damage done to pregnant women is extraordinary from these bioweapons. And I want all of you to help pregnant women understand the risks they take with these injections and think about over the last 20 years how a pregnant woman wasn't even allowed to have particular types of cheese or a sip of alcohol because it'll damage the child, and then they're being forced to have these interventions. Don't do it. The next item is the recent United Kingdom elections held on the 4th of July, ironically, in a clear statement of irony, where Rishi Sunak, the UK Prime Minister, called a snap election and the Conservatives have been tossed out. Now, the interesting thing with these numbers, and Andrew Bridgen, I interviewed him, had him on a show that I moderate. He was a spectacularly successful West Warwickshire parliamentarian for the last 10 years, and that conversation with him showed the fraud that's being perpetrated again in elections. And what he shared with this meeting really shows what a fraud gets perpetrated on people, and the election and the opportunities for improper counting in the UK system. Keir Starmer, who's the new Prime Minister of the UK, is a World Economic Forum acolyte, and this whole election here has been set up in the UK. Andrew Bridgen shared a very important point. He said Rishi Sunak was heard to say, "I don't want to be a wartime Prime Minister." In other words, the prediction is that by autumn in the UK and Russia will be at war. Why? Because already in the Ukraine, there are UK soldiers on the ground allegedly firing UK weaponry into Russia. That's a great way to start a war. Rishi Sunak doesn't want to be running a war as a Prime Minister. Go figure, everybody. Now, where that leads to, how you think about this, again, get various sources of information to satisfy yourself about what might be truer than what might not. And one of the great memes that I rely upon, and I urge you to rely upon, is when you realize the government is out to confuse you, you will no longer be confused. When things appear confusing, we tend to say, gosh, I must be stupid, I don't understand. No, it's deliberate confusion making. When you see that, your levels of confusion will drop dramatically. The last area of concern I have is the digital ID process that is recommended for Australia, the misinformation, disinformation bill. These attacks on our freedoms are coming thick and fast. I will say more about that, but please understand that going digital with your ID is a very dangerous thing to do. How do you push back against this? This is where your self-awareness comes. You start to go, well, how important is my freedom? That's the big question. Am I willing to do uncomfortable things? Last week's episode, I talked about doing uncomfortable things. That depends on your values. I want you to have as much freedom as possible. That's what makes you human. Freedom is what makes us human. All right. This week, my guest on TNT Radio is a wonderful singer-songwriter, Kelly Newton Wordsworth from Western Australia. And the song I want you to listen to is Forest of the Fallen. Beautiful song. I can't listen to it without having tears in my eyes. It is a tribute to those people who have died over the last 4 years as a consequence of what's been put into their bodies. And Kelly has a law degree, chose not to practice law. She's an experienced biodynamic farmer. So you'll enjoy my conversation with her, where I will also explore the value of protest songs, because protest songs, music is the language of the soul, and a great protest song motivates you to harness your resources to push back against government, to push back against authority, to stand up for what you think is right. The reading I recommend to you is Aaron Siri's Substack. So, I hope today's show makes you think, and that it makes a beneficial difference to your life, a life that I believe is meant to be all that you are capable of making of it. If you're new to the show, check the links in the notes to the foundational principles of the show and details of my background, and also the links to my two websites, covest.com, charlescovest.com. Again, thanks for watching or listening, and until our next show, may your week be full of passion, full of challenge and embracing those challenges, full of fun, full of nourishment for your mind and your body and your soul, and a week of ever-increasing awareness. Awareness about who you truly are and how you want to live life on your terms. Have a great week. See you next week. Bye.